right, welcome. Thank you for joining us again on this episode of Real Living. It is a delight today to have Brent and Paula Watts, brother and sister Watts, from the great state of North Carolina. And they pastor a great and thriving church in Matthews, the Queen City of, Charlotte? Charlotte, just outside of Charlotte, Matthews, North Carolina. And we are glad that you have come. And you guys came down just to do this podcast, so that's extra special. And we are grateful that you guys have come. And
thanks for the invitation.
Spending this time with us. This is a low-key podcast here, so we just like to relax. And one of the reasons why we started this is that we want to have conversations that our folks and other folks have around their kitchen table. And so you guys have a unique story, and I wanted you guys to come and share that with us. It is a story of I guess it started in tragedy and not the news that you want to get, especially trying to pastor church and grow people. And so with that, why don't you just kind of give just a brief introduction of who you are and where you're from?
All right. Yes. As you mentioned already, Brent Watts, pastor of Abundant Life Church in Matthews, and my wife, Paula. And it's really, to a large degree, her story, so I'll let her tell the story. But we're happy to be here, and thank you for the invitation to come. Hope that it will be a blessing and encouragement to some people today.
I know it will. Sister Watts, why don't you just introduce yourself?
All right, I'm Paula Watts, and Pastor said we had a story in 2018. We had, everything was going well, and I just, in a routine office visit for my yearly physical, got some news that I didn't think I would ever receive.
Yeah.
They told me they felt like I had cancer, so they sent me for a biopsy. And after a week or so, they called me and said, in fact, it was cancer.
Wow.
And
so that was in 2018?
That was 2018.
Wow.
March 2018.
March
okay.
12th, I got the call.
Dates you remember. They get burned into your memory.
Never forget the dates.
Wow, no doubt.
And so I... went and saw a surgeon, got my options.
So that's, 5 years ago?
5 years ago, yes.
So we
just over 5.
Passed the 5-year mark, which is a major victory.
Wow, yeah.
Huge victory, yes. And so they said I was stage 1. Took 3 months to get me on the surgery schedule. In fact, I told my husband, I need a surgery date, and I'm not hearing from them. I'm not sure why. He went to the office and said, my wife has cancer and she needs a surgery date. It's been 3 months. It took him 3 months. So he left the office that day with a surgery date. But in that passage of time, 3 months, the tumor grew.
Wow.
And so I went to sleep stage 1. When I woke up from the surgery, I was stage 3.
Oh, wow.
And that was one of my struggles. I tried not to be too angry. But it was very frustrating to feel like, could you not get me in a little sooner? But nonetheless, I was stage 3. And so that, instead of just being a simple surgery, then I went into having to take chemo and to do radiation.
Yeah. So when you got the news, was it a phone call or was it actually in person?
Unbelievably. It was a phone call.
It was a phone call.
She was driving around town.
I was driving down the road and my phone rang. Thank God my daughter was with me.
Oh, wow.
And she could tell what was going on. And she's like, Mom, do not break down. Stay strong. You're going to be okay.
Wow.
Yes. I was driving there like, you have invasive ductal carcinoma.
Oh, my. I can't imagine. So you weren't with her?
I was not with her.
Yeah.
No.
Goodness. So you got the news, you got an appointment, and how long was it from when you were diagnosed until you went in for surgery?
3 months.
3 months.
So 3 months, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
3 months.
And normally most breast cancer cases like that, they're doing surgery in like 2 to 3 weeks max.
Okay. Wow.
And we had an international trip plan. We canceled that just to try to be able to be available to act as quickly as possible. Yeah. And it was a very frustrating time. And as she said, one of the battles for us personally was just to not get a really bad attitude about them taking so long. And then especially as it unfolded and you had to always wonder, would it have been a lot different if we would have acted more quickly?
Yeah.
Something we'll never know.
Right.
But there's always that question there.
Yeah. So when did you tell your church?
Probably 2 weeks later, maybe.
2 weeks. Okay. I
know,
can't imagine a 2-week time period and all that's on your heart.
we wanted to kind of get a little grasp of what we were dealing with.
Yeah.
But some people process it differently. Some people choose to go through stuff very privately, almost no information.
Yeah.
We made a decision that we knew our church. We knew our church people. We knew they were going to be some of our greatest source of strength and support.
Sure.
And so, we were very upfront with them from the beginning. This is what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Of course, initially, like any apostolic believer, we're going to believe the Lord can heal this.
Right. Sure.
We're going to pray. And we went to special meetings and guest speakers, had prayer and different things. And probably, I would say, maybe 4 to 6 weeks into that, we thought, after all the prayer that's gone up, the different special ones that had prayed for her, it may not be God's will to heal her. It may be God's will to teach us lessons in ways that we can't learn them any other way.
Yeah.
And we had to come to the place where we could say, God, if you choose not to heal her, we're still okay with that.
Yeah.
Because we know you've still got this under control.
Right. So you get the news, you go in for surgery. Tell us about recovery, like after you went through surgery, what was the recovery like?
Well, it was pretty intense.
Yeah.
In fact, my mom came down to help me because I was on a lot of medications. And my husband was still trying to remain pastoring the church. He was busy and he helped. He was amazing. But there's just a lot to it.
Yeah.
But I did have a lot of support.
Yeah.
And I did ask my mom for 2 weeks, if you give me 2 weeks. And that kind of got me through the recovery as much as possible. And then, it was just a kind of a slow, drawn out process.
Yeah.
But we made it.
Because physically, you're weak. You.
Yeah. Well, but then she started radiation. I'm thinking.
Not radiation.
Started chemo. 20 weeks of chemo. About 4 to 6 weeks later.
6 weeks later.
Okay.
Yes.
And there was 20 weeks of that.
Yeah.
Then there were 36 radiation treatments, which was another. You're getting 5 a week.
Yeah.
Another.
Wow.
Yeah, another.
It's intense.
Couple months after that.
Yeah.
A couple of months after my second surgery.
So, when you're going through all this, you're going through it physically, emotionally, psychologically. It's just surreal. It really is. You think it happens to other people, but when it hits home,
Yes,
the impact is just got to be.
It is, and at first the reaction was, "Why us?"
Yeah.
We've lived for the Lord all of our lives.
Sure.
Why us?
Right.
But then we, in prayer, really felt impressed to change our approach and not ask why us, but why not us?
Yeah,
because
that's good.
we are people of
That's
faith.
key. Yeah.
It really is. We are people of faith. Why not?
Right.
He preaches healing. He preaches trusting the Lord, and so we got to live it.
So we like the signs and miracles and wonders. We just want them to come from somebody else.
Yeah.
Yes.
We don't want to be the subject of the healing.
You always are hopeful and exercising faith in those areas. And like I said, then we just kind of came to a place of peace that, God, you're going to get, you're going to go with us through this valley.
Yeah.
Amen.
And as you were saying, the why not us, praying and kind of that pity party type stuff at the beginning. And felt like the Lord said, well, why not you? You've got a good support system. You got a church that supports you. You got friends that support you. Imagine going through this without God, without the church, without friends. Yep. And I thought, well, okay. It's amazing how it can change your perspective.
Sure.
But the Lord was good and faithful. And during those 20 weeks of chemotherapy, she made a decision kind of early on that in spite of all this, I'm going to try to live as normal as possible. Yeah. And so in spite of going through chemotherapy, she was a music instructor. She went back to work, never missed a class.
How long would that have been from?
Well, I had surgery and then I had 8 weeks of intense chemo.
Yeah, okay.
2 drugs, one being the Red Devil. So during that time, I stayed home.
Yeah, so you're to the hospital and back home, or the doctor's office and back home.
That was it.
Yeah, once every 2 weeks.
End of June, July.
Infusions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So through June, July, August, then once school started back, I went down to one drug, Taxol. That was much easier. So yes, I went back to work. I decided I would be have as much normalcy as possible in my life.
So there's people listening that no doubt are either going to experience this themselves or have or know of somebody, maybe a family member. When you go through something as serious as cancer, and I know you both well enough to know that you're going to have to somewhere in all of that find some humor. Mm-hmm. And so tell us maybe some of the humorous things about your experience in trying to make life a little easier through this.
Well,
So,
bro, first of all, she made a couple of major decisions kind of at the very front end of this thing. One of them was this experience can either make us bitter or it can make it better.
Right.
So we're going to purposely, intentionally choose that this is going to make us better. The second thing was that she chose, she said, I am going to choose. We got one of two choices. We can either cry our way through this experience.
Yeah, it's good.
Or we can laugh our way through the experience.
Yeah.
So we're going to choose to laugh our way through this.
Yes.
And she would watch comedy, good Christian comedy, anything that we could find that would be lighthearted. And I'll let her share a couple stories here in a moment. The third thing that she decided right up front was, I am going to ruthlessly eliminate negativity.
that's so good. That is so good.
And sometimes I was on the verge of getting ruthlessly eliminated because if I ever ventured toward negativity, she'd say, that's it, stop right there. No, I'm not having it. Yeah. And if you were a negative person, you were not going to get into her life at that moment.
Yeah.
Because negativity can be very toxic.
Yeah.
And so, she was going to focus on positivity. And one of the things that she also did was chose to listen to a lot of preaching tapes that would just build her faith, things that were positive, a lot of Billy Cole type stuff.
On YouTube. Yes, I would go on YouTube just to find messages on healing and on faith.
It's good.
So that it could speak into my life.
So you're surrounding yourself with positive inputs.
Yeah. Yeah. But for the humor, tell.
Yeah, I want to hear some of
the
these.
first thing that I think of is when I knew I was going to lose my hair.
Yeah.
But it was very emotional.
And that's a big deal for
It is
apostolic
a huge deal.
people.
It's like your identity.
Yeah.
You're losing. And so I remember one evening my daughter, once I started my second treatment, it started falling out. So she combed my hair and we were just bawling and squalling, and it was very emotional. So then the next day I got up and I said, I'm just going to wash my hair. I know it's all going to come out. And the rest of it all came out the next day. But I did take my girls, both of my daughters with me, wig shopping. That was, we made the best of it. We had a lot of fun. So I have a daughter that is dark-headed, brunette like me, and I have a daughter that's blonde-headed. So I did try on the blonde wig. She and I took pictures. We had so much fun. She's like, I feel like we look alike now.
That
We're
is
family,
so good.
So yeah, we had a lot of fun with that. We laughed a lot. We tried on all kinds of. They tried on wigs with me. It was just a fun time rather than it being this dreadful thing that you have to go through.
That's so funny.
And we had a lot of fun. In fact, my grandchildren even got in on it. My granddaughter, she would want to try my wig on. So we let her try it on and take pictures. She was very much a part of that. We included them.
That's good.
And let them know, hey, this is just a journey that we're going through. And the Lord's with us. You wouldn't have to be afraid of it.
Right.
I wanted to portray to them that even when you're sick, you can have a good time.
Yeah.
You don't have to, always be in the, bad mood or have sadness in your life. You can be happy in the midst of trial.
That's so good.
Well, and I had told her, and really for me, that's when it got real. That's when her hair fell out.
Yeah.
It had been real, but it got real to see your wife that's had beautifully uncut long hair.
Yeah, sure.
Be bald-headed. And so I had told her previously that when that happened, that I would shave my head in solidarity with her. And she very humorously replied to me that was no big sacrifice
in
for me.
sickness and in health.
So that's no big sacrifice, So, but I came in from playing golf one Monday, and she had the clippers and said, "Okay, you said you're going to do it." So she shaved my head slick as a whistle.
Did she greet you wig or wigless?
That
with the razor.
Probably wigless because the wigs were so hot.
Oh, okay.
When I was at home, I would generally take them off. And in
Yeah.
fact, my grandchildren, if they were at the house and I would take it off, I would forget that they were there. And my grandson said, Gigi, you need to put your wig back on. But they were very hot.
But,
no doubt.
and then just stuff for us. And we had seen this at, I think, when we went to Duke University for a second opinion. But we had our daughter come and take pictures of the two of us, both bald-headed. And those are just memories for us, to remember. But unfortunately for me, her hair grew back wonderfully. I still did not gain too much back.
You used to have blonde hair, I think.
I did.
Yeah.
did.
Pastoring and
Yes.
life tends to
It has stolen a little
extinguish some things.
Absolutely.
That's so good, because I think folks hearing this should understand that you don't have to let the tragedy become the focus of your experience. You through it all can say, you know what, I'm going to do what you did. I'm going to praise the Lord. I'm going to serve Him. I'm going to be glad and rejoice in the great things God has done in our life.
Absolutely. And what can I learn from it?
Yeah.
Right. What can you learn? And also, I think one of the things that came to my mind too was, I want us to be an example to our people of how you negotiate something like this in a great way.
Yeah. And that's key. And I want to key off on that, because there's this philosophy in the world that says Christianity should be without suffering and without pain and without setbacks. And that's just not Christianity. That's not biblical.
It's not life.
Right.
It's not reality.
Right. That's exactly right. But Jesus suffered.
Yeah.
And I really think our world sees Christianity fuller and brighter through those who suffer, but yet can still serve the Lord. Though He slay me.
Yeah. Well, the Scripture says we're made perfect through suffering.
Yeah, that's good.
There's things that you can learn going through those kind of things. And nobody would volunteer to learn it that way.
Oh, sure.
But there's things that you learn in situations like that you could not learn any other way.
Yeah.
And I have told people, and I don't mind being transparent about this. I am a much better man.
Yeah.
Having gone through the situation that we went through. I'm much more caring. I'm much more compassionate. I always thought I had those type of things. But then when I got in the middle of it and found out what real care was like, what real compassion was like, it's like I wasn't nearly as good at those things as I thought I was until you're really having to face it.
Yeah.
And it made us both better people. My wife is at a level of anointing on her life. I can tell you, though, but when you come to the end of that, the anointing was like triple, quadruple what it was before.
That's tremendous. And so I guess how long was it until you were right back in doing what you were doing before the cancer?
I would say it took us a year to get through the treatment, the surgeries. So it took me a year. And then after that, the Lord had sent people our way to kind of fill in for me and stand in the gap so that I was able to take care of myself.
Yeah.
And that is just amazing to me how the Lord works in that way. And so I didn't have to worry about a lot of things. That was all taken care of. And so I was able to take that year to take care of myself.
Yeah,
so
that's so good.
It's definitely a blessing.
And that didn't mean that she was just totally sitting on the sidelines. I mean, she was still involved in some stuff. But
not to the extent that I was normally.
But it really was about a 15-month journey from diagnosis to last surgery.
Yeah.
With the chemo and radiation, all that in between. It was about a 15-month journey. And yet the Lord was so kind to her. She only missed one Wednesday night service in all of that treatment. And that was because I got her medicines mixed up that day. So it was my fault that made her sick because I didn't get the medicine.
Well, we were just not used to taking medicine, period. And then all of a sudden you have this regimen of these different medications you have to take. So literally we had to chart it out. Yeah. Because when you're taking the medicine, sometimes you're not thinking clearly as well. So it was an adjustment.
So in pastoring through this, how did it change you? from the perspective of pastor?
Yeah, well, one, I learned I could work from almost anywhere these days with a laptop and Wi-Fi. Outside of one of the times when her mom and sister were in town, I went to every one of her infusion treatments, sat there beside her. Super glad that this didn't happen during the pandemic when they would have to go and sit there for 4 or 5 hours by themselves.
Yeah.
I was able to be right there beside her working. So I did remote work before remote work became cool in that kind of sense, and learned that I could do those kind of things. And again, the people of our church were so kind to us. They were supportive. They brought meals in. They helped in any way.
Yeah, and I was going to say,
could.
Talk about the value of the church.
Yes. And you learn what the church is really all about in moments of crisis.
Yeah.
It's like after, I think maybe it's her first surgery or something, I came home and literally our house looked like a flower shop. There were so many flower arrangements. Wow. It just, the expressions of support and kindness. And then sometimes months down the road, I ran into a friend of mine that pastors in Arkansas, and never had been communicated to me. We hadn't talked directly about what my wife was going through. And I see him at our general conference, and he's like, yeah, Brent's like a couple months ago, we were having a men's meeting, and in the midst of that men's meeting, your face came to my mind, and I knew what you're going through. So our men's group took about 10 minutes, and we just prayed for you and your wife. And
that's encouraging.
It's so
I get kind of teary-eyed thinking about it right now, because we knew we were living on the strength of other people's prayers sometimes.
Right.
We were praying, we were doing what we knew to do. God was helping us. But there were times we knew it was like supernatural strength. And then, 2 or 3 months down the road, you hear, hey, on this night, there was a men's group in Arkansas that all those men were praying for you.
That's incredible.
And that's what the church is about.
Where would we be without the church?
Yeah. And it goes back to that statement of the Lord saying to me, why not you?
Yeah.
Look at all the support you've got. Look at all the stuff. And I think the thing that was absolutely shocking to us initially was to learn that 1 in 8 women sometime in their lifetime is going to be diagnosed with breast cancer.
Wow. I didn't realize it was that high.
Yes. It's incredibly high.
Wow.
Like, 12%. So that means if you have 100 ladies in a room, 12 of them at some point in their life are going to be diagnosed with breast cancer.
My goodness.
We never were aware of that until, you get in the, it's like, but then once you're exposed to it, then you start seeing all kinds of stuff.
Sure.
But, it's not unfortunately, it's not a unique journey, but they've come so far. One of the things that was very encouraging to her was talk to past breast cancer survivors. And they're saying, like, we're 15 years, we're 20 years removed from it, we're still doing good. Those kinds of conversations were very, very encouraging. Yeah. Then you realized, like, some of the treatment and how it had changed and become so much more effective. One of the new things that they had when she was doing those real intense drugs, they had come out with a new shot. You went back in and got this shot 24 hours after you had the infusion. Neulasta, $7,000 a shot. But that shot would supercharge your white blood cell system so that amazingly, in 20 weeks of chemotherapy, she never got sick one time.
That is amazing.
Is really amazing.
It is amazing.
Not any bouts of nausea. Maybe slightly, but never one time throwing up, never, actually getting sick. And so the way they had advanced made you appreciative of the research that they put into that. It also helped that her particular type of breast cancer is one of the most common types, so it was the most studied type and most addressed. And so there were some upsides to some of it that were different maybe than even somebody else's story and journey, and everybody has a kind of a unique part of it.
Right.
But through it all, the Lord was faithful. And one of the most humbling things for me, I think, was sitting beside her on the front row during a worship service, knowing she's going through all that she's gone through. And we chose to have the treatments on Mondays so that by the next Sunday she would kind of be back in her stronger point again. Because it would for 2 or 3 days, especially, it'd take it out of me. But she was there on Wednesday nights, except for the one I messed up her medicine. But to stand there beside her, knowing that just going through it. and hear her lifting her hands and hear her worshiping the Lord and hear her just talking in tongues and knowing that God was ministering. One of the most humbling aspects, I think, of my ministry and of our relationship. But I think it was on the Saturday night before she was starting her treatment. She was asking God for just something to kind of hold on to. And she felt led to Matthew chapter 16, where it says, if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. Well, she says, I'm not really drinking this medicine. It's being, infused into me.
Sure. But
she felt inspired out of that to pray, God, let it kill what it needs to kill and let it not affect anything else. I'm going to take this deadly thing, but let it kill what it needs to kill, and then let it live what needs to live. And, it's little promises from the word of the Lord. Standing on the word is so encouraging.
My goodness. So my memory fails me at times, but didn't you, I thought I heard maybe at one point, because of this, you may have started an advocacy.
I did.
Group or something for them.
And it's kind of cool how the pandemic changed that. Because initially it kind of started out of her local desire that the only support groups in Matthews were in uptown Charlotte, which is a 30-minute drive.
Yeah.
And she's like, when you're going through chemotherapy and all this, you don't feel like driving 30 miles, 30 minutes out of town to get in a support group. And so she said, I'm just going to start something here locally. So she started it at our church, and it was on Monday night. Well, then when the pandemic came along, everything had to move to Zoom all of a sudden. And then that changing of stuff then opened up the door to greater ministry, because now it wasn't limited to the local people. So now on those Zoom calls, there's people from all over the country that are coming in and getting in on those Zoom calls,
Yes,
and so it's actually broadened the reach of that, and been an exciting thing to see what the Lord has done, and it's had its moments where there have been some that she's been involved with that have actually passed away, and it just kind of comes with the territory of dealing with some of those people who God doesn't always answer prayer like that, doesn't always accomplish what needs to be accomplished in our view, but yet it's always what needs to happen in his view. And so very, very grateful. It's had such a positive impact, and people have been very supportive of that. So, if there's somebody out there that maybe is watching and feels like you need some support, there's some ways that you can contact my wife and find out that Zoom information so that you could join Positively Pink on the first Monday night of every month at
8 p.m. Eastern
Well, we were
Standard
saved by Zoom, weren't we?
Yeah.
Sometimes, and it goes back to being positive. It goes back to perspective. It goes back to understanding that we're in the hands of God, and God is controlling all of this. And you guys are incredible to go through what you've gone through and to experience what you've experienced, and then to sit here and say, you know what, God has been good to us through the whole experience, and we're not going to allow the tragedy to rule the story. But yet, through this, you guys have victory.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, there's always
and you're turning it into blessing other people.
Yeah. Well, she had expressed a desire towards the end. She's like, we've got to find a way to pay it forward and be able to turn this. And something that I have taught our church pretty consistently is God never wastes a hurt.
That's good.
He always likes to recycle your pain into somebody else's.
That sounds like a good Wednesday night message there.
And so, it's kind of been ingrained in my ministry philosophy and all that kind of stuff. She said, we've got to find a way to pay it forward.
Yeah.
Not long after she had said that, I got an email from the Cancer Treatment Centers of America explaining that they have a training program. And so probably, it was only about 2 months after she had finished her radiation, that we actually went down to Cancer Treatment Centers of America just outside of Atlanta, went through a 2-day intensive training program by their chaplaincy program.
Wonderful
about
program.
how to set up a cancer care ministry in your church.
That's excellent.
And it was free training. I mean, we had to pay our expenses to get there, but the training's free. Then, by the two of us going through that, then it unlocked a video training library that we came home, and now in our church, we have 10 fully trained cancer care ministry specialists that can walk alongside any family that's going
that is so
cancer.
good.
And realistically, what blew my mind about it was that they gave the statistics there that 1 in 2 men and 1 in 3 ladies at some point in their life is going to be diagnosed with some form of cancer. Those numbers absolutely blew my mind, number one. But it's
so every church is going to be touched with it.
Oh, every church is. I mean, every church. We just had a guy that just finished some treatment in our church a couple weeks ago. We've had, during the time she's going through that, we had 2 or 3 others that were going through various forms of cancer. But the overlooked opportunity in that was the outreach of a ministry like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because, and again, it's not an in-your-face type thing, but if you're somebody that's going through cancer, you're thinking about eternity.
Sure.
You're thinking about shortness of life. You're thinking about, I need to get my act together. And so if you have someone that's there to care for you spiritually, emotionally, mentally, but then as the door opens, you can share the gospel with them.
Absolutely.
It's probably one of the most overlooked ministry opportunities that the church has.
Yeah.
And so I would put in a great plug for them. It's certainly not anything we get anything out of, but I would put a plug in to every church to consider sending somebody to the Cancer Treatment Centers of America for the training that they have and bringing it back home.
Is it 1 day? Is it 2 days?
2 days.
2 days. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's 2 days, 1 night.
It's pretty comprehensive.
Yeah. And then there's I think either 8 to 10 approximately 45-minute videos that are in a vault that you come home and then hold the training sessions for people in your church.
Yeah.
And then there's also ongoing lessons that they send you every month.
Yeah.
So we use those in our Positively Pink. It's a continuation of that training.
And you meet every month?
We meet every month.
Every month. And it's just a night during the week?
Yeah, Monday nights. First Monday night of the month.
Wow.
Except for next month with being a holiday, then they move it to the second because of
I see.
Labor Day.
Okay.
But and they cover all kinds of topics. And again, some of the people are going through it right now. Others have been through it, want to be supportive of those. They're praying for each other, encouraging each other. And then there's usually interaction outside of that meeting, of some kind. They're sending cards to each other and different things. But
and we also send, when you go through chemotherapy, they suggest, Duke suggested to me the usage of ice on your hands and feet to prevent neuropathy.
Okay.
So I tell all the ladies on my group, if they haven't heard from their doctor, I tell them this is the latest findings. So we'll send therapy socks. Our group will send money.
That's awesome.
We'll send them what they need.
Yep.
We have one lady, she went through breast cancer. Now she's had a brain tumor, and so she's kind of knocked the wind out of her. She's kind of slowing down. So our groups got together. We're sending her money to help her financially with her bills because it takes a lot.
Sure.
Medically and financially, it can be a burden. So our group is there to support one another and to help whoever has needs.
This is incredible. Here, I didn't know about some of this stuff. That's incredible. Just the opportunity to reach, touch new people that are unsaved, but ministering to their need first.
Exactly.
And what's the old saying? People don't care how much you know till they know how much you care.
Exactly.
So.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And a place where they can see somebody who's been through it.
Right.
And, if they have questions, what did you do? I mean, you can ask the doctor, but there's nothing like asking somebody who's been through it.
Right.
What did you do? How did that feel?
Right.
And to have a real life person there to be like, okay, you're going to make it.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy, but.
You had a friend or two, right, that was going through the same cancer, right? Sister Erskine?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
She went.
She was a great support to me. She went through it a couple years before me.
Okay, yeah.
And so she would check on me, texted me a lot,
Oh, that's
prayed
so
for
good.
me a lot. So yes, I had several friends who had been through that.
Having that support group.
Oh, yeah. Anybody that's been through it, it was so important. And, I will add this too, that the caregiver doesn't need to be forgotten.
So true.
They're not going through the treatment, but there's other aspects of their life.
Yeah.
And so to anyone that's a caregiver for somebody that's going through cancer,
Yeah.
I would say this, first of all, don't be afraid of self-care. Because
Good point.
if you don't take care of yourself,
Good point.
you're not going to be able to take care of the person in need.
Yeah.
And so when she got her diagnosis and all this kind of stuff, and all of a sudden I'm becoming a caregiver to her, that's when I got real serious about really trying to take care of myself even more than I thought I'd tried to do it before,
Yeah.
but I amped up the level completely. That's when I started developing a habit of walking every day.
Yeah.
One, it was good to clear my head space and just, being outdoors and away
Sure.
and time to think and all that kind of stuff. But the health benefits of it,
Sure.
I didn't want to break down. The Lord helped me to not get sick the whole
Yeah.
time she was going through it,
That's
so
excellent.
that I could take care of her. And so being a caregiver, it does have its own complications.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the great things with this Cancer Treatment America training too, was you're not only ministering to the patient,
Yeah.
but you're also
But to the
ministering to the caregiver.
Yeah.
And
Because they could feel isolated at times, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And they're very much a part of the process.
Yeah.
yeah,
So-
well, their life's changing
Absolutely.
very drastically too.
Yep.
Additional times it's having to be dedicated to doing some stuff, and so to all the caregivers, realize how beneficial it is,
Yeah.
and do practice some self-care, so that you. The other thing that I became very adamant about was trying to get proper rest.
Yeah.
It's
so important.
Food,
Yeah.
rest, things that would just lead to a healthy lifestyle
Yeah.
for me.
And don't try to be Superman.
And don't try to be Superman.
Yeah.
No. And realize, and I think it's partly from being a pastor, we're used to giving the help rather than receiving help.
Yeah.
And it was really a mental hurdle,
Yeah.
I put it that way,
Sure.
to graciously learn to receive help.
Yeah,
from
that's
people.
difficult for
That was
folks that are
difficult,
always
yes.
giving out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like we had a lady in our church, she hired someone to clean my house the whole time I had chemo. That was so humbling. I was not used to that.
Yeah, and you're like, I want to help.
I knew I couldn't do
Yeah.
it, and to know that she would do that for me, that just was amazing.
That's tremendous.
Yeah. And you get encouraging messages from time to time. And I think one of the coolest messages that we got in the midst of it is somebody sent us a link to a video that Brother Chester Wright up in Maryland, his wife had made with her son. It was, I don't know if it was a podcast, similar to what we're doing, or
Yeah.
some kind of interview. It was a video. And there was one particular part of it that really resonated with us, because she was on her third round with breast cancer. And she was taking similar treatment to what my wife was. And there was one of the medicines that she already referenced, Taxol, that they call the Red
That would
Devil.
be adriamycin.
Adriamycin.
Yeah.
Adriamycin, that they call the Red Devil. And it was bright red in appearance when they brought the bag out, bright red, But Sister Wright is explaining this to her son, her treatment, and Bishop Wright noticed that when they brought this out, the treatment changed, the protocol changed drastically. They would come out and they would drape like protective gear, over
coat on.
yourself, and then they would suit up in protective gear. And
Wow.
we were noticing this too. There would be two nurses that would come out and they would call her name out to each other and birth date, and we learned her birth date really well, because every time they ask, it's like, "What's your name? What's your birth date?"
And the amount of the dosage.
And the amount
had
of the
to be
dosage,
said
back
out
and
loud.
forth.
Yeah.
I mean, they verified it, double verified it. And they never did that on anything else. And so Bishop Wright's picking up on this, and so he asked the nurse, said, the protocol totally changes. You bring out all this protective gear.
Yeah.
You put protective gear on. Why are you doing that for this medicine? And so this nurse said, well, because if just one drop of it were to get on your flesh, it would just eat a hole in your flesh. Well, Bishop Wright has been known to get a little worked up sometimes, and he got a little worked up when that nurse said that to him, and he said, well, then why in God's name would you put that in her body? If it's going to eat a hole in her flesh, why would you put that in her body? And that nurse, speaking from a purely scientific perspective, but not knowing the spiritual implications of what he said, well, sir, that's because the blood can handle a lot of things that the flesh can't.
Oh, man. Oh, wow.
I'm telling you,
that is so
when we
good.
watched that part of the video, I wanted to get up and run around my house just shouting a praise, a victory, because we realize the spiritual implications.
Absolutely.
Of that.
That's
and,
incredible.
Little inspirational things like that can certainly boost your spirits completely.
Kidding. That's incredible. That's incredible. Well, this has been really good. So we're 5 years now.
5 years.
And so when did you get the report that said, okay, you're cancer free?
Well, they declared her cancer free after the first surgery.
Okay.
After they
removed the tumor.
Okay.
After they removed the tumor
Okay.
and all that, and they from that moment,
Okay.
cancer free.
Okay.
Everything else that happened after that, the chemo,
Yep.
the
Preventative, I
radiation,
guess.
Yes.
She's on a 10-year medicine
Okay.
that she's taking right now. It's all about preventing it.
Okay.
With the stuff that she did, she chose to act pretty radically, to give her the best shot, because at that point, well, I'm not going to give her age, but she was fairly young. Should have a long
Absolutely.
life ahead.
Yep.
So she wanted to give herself the best chance of it never
Right.
reoccurring again.
Yeah.
And so now her chances of getting a reoccurrence of breast cancer are significantly less than the first chance of her getting breast cancer. It's maybe down to like 5%.
Yeah.
With all the preventative stuff that's happening.
Yeah.
There's always that chance, but we have learned not to live in fear.
Right.
That's right.
Not to, not to always say, oh goodness, we're going to have to face this again.
Right.
We're just believing that,
Sure.
it's done. And most of the people that follow the treatment that she's followed, it's never an issue in their life again.
Yeah.
But, the cancer-free part starts.
Yeah.
Then it's all about preventative.
Okay. Wow. Incredible. Any last words that you would want to leave with somebody that's going through it right now? They got the diagnosis. Their gut is, been ripped out, and they're trying to know what next steps to take. Anything that we haven't said, Mike, that has come to mind?
The first reaction is always fear.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It's always fear.
Yeah.
But, the first reaction is not always the right reaction.
Yeah.
And so then when you step back, you just have to say, okay, what are my options?
Mm-hmm.
And then you just have to put on, that positive attitude. I always encourage a positive attitude, because really you get into that negative attitude.
Yeah.
And it really does affect your health.
Sure.
My doctor, in fact, she told me, she said, I needed someone to encourage one of my patients. And she said, me and the nurse were thinking, who's the most positive person we know? They didn't look for the negative person.
Yeah.
Who's the most positive?
For sure. Yeah.
And they both said my name at the same time.
Yeah.
So I met their patient.
Sure.
And said, this is what it looks like. You're going to be okay.
Yeah.
This is what I have a wig on. They're like, they couldn't tell I had a wig on. I'm still functioning. Everything, because sometimes people think life ends.
Right.
But it doesn't. It doesn't have to
That's
end.
good.
If you will keep a positive attitude and realize other people have gone through it, and you're going to make it.
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 Yeah. And, back to the humorous part of it, you can find the humor. She went to like the Christmas show, I think it was. And this lady walked up to her and said, ma'am, you have such beautiful hair. She didn't tell her it was a wig. She just said,
yep,
She
thank
kept
you.
going on and on about my hair. She kept going on and on. I'm like, oh, Lord.
That's so funny.
And the good thing is, again, they've come a long ways with some stuff. So she was able to find something that she could style pretty much that just looked like who she was.
Sure.
And there were many people that were even close friends that couldn't believe that it was a wig.
That's something. You tried that wig on, didn't you?
Maybe he should have.
And you just, you make the best.
That's right. That's right.
And it's kind of, interesting journey. I'd give her a hard time, say, well, what are you going to do if, your hair's all has fallen out. It's all going to come. What if it comes back in gray? She said, I'm going to keep wearing my wig.
That's so funny.
Which probably would not have been true. And it's interesting because when it came back in, it came in darker than it was.
Okay.
Came in initially super curly.
Isn't that something?
And, you just never know what that's going to be. But the greatest key, I think, is keeping the proper attitude about it.
Yeah.
Because it's either going to make or break the experience.
That's right. He's King of Kings and Lord of Lords.
That's right. Regardless of what we go through.
That's it.
He's still King
That's
of
so
Kings
good.
and Lord.
And you have to have that unshakable faith that he's got it all in control.
And you have to know you're not alone.
Yeah.
You're never alone.
So good.
The Lord is with you.
Amen.
Even when it feels like everyone else's life is going on and yours kind of been put on hold and you're doing all this treatment, everyone else just living their life.
Yeah.
But you have to realize you're not alone.
You're not alone.
God is with you.
Amen.
Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. You're going to walk through.
Boy, the scriptures just come out when you're going through stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, and you learn to celebrate the small victories too.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's a long journey. Like I said, for us, it's 15 months. This is not like, you got a cold, you're going to be over it in a week. And we knew that.
Yeah, it's a marathon.
Once we got the diagnosis, you're going to have to go through chemo, you're going to have to go through radiation. We knew we were in for a long journey.
Yeah.
And so you have to mentally adjust for that, number one. But number two, learn to celebrate. Like, it's forever notched in our minds, December 3rd. Because December 3rd was when she got to ring the bell signaling the completion of her chemotherapy. Well, she was only maybe halfway through her treatment, but believe me, that was a celebration time.
That's so good.
And even to this day.
We still celebrate those dates.
June 19th, 20th, we celebrate. This is the day I became, and she used it to her advantage. I'm going to have to take her out, treat her to a nice meal to celebrate being cancer-free.
Absolutely.
And I'm glad to do it.
But it's worth celebrating. That's right.
Well, that's key, celebrating.
Yeah.
It's so easy for us to get negative. It's so easy for us to pout. But, man, you got to celebrate those.
You celebrate the milestones as they come.
That's so good. Thank y'all for sharing this. This has truly been good, and I think it's really going to bless those that are listening. And thank you guys just for coming and sharing your testimony.
We're here to help anybody that needs help, and if sharing our story can be an encouragement to somebody.
Well, I think it's going to help people, and then your monthly meeting, that's going to be key. And we're going to talk more about that off camera, but we want to implement some of those things here and. Because we want to be that church. We want to become all things to all people, that we might save some. And so thank you guys for coming. We appreciate it.
Been here.
God bless you.
Bless you, and remain blessed.
Remain blessed. That's exactly right. And for you that are listening, thank you for joining us today. And until next time, may God bless you and your family.